Let me welcome you to this session of the Sixth World Forum of Cities and Logistic Platforms, in which we will talk about economic development in Europe through logistic platforms. For this, we have four exceptional speakers. Firstly, let me introduce you to Mrs. Isabel Velasco, President of Europe Platforms, an entity that brings together the main national associations of logistic platforms in Europe. In addition, Mrs. Velasco works as the sales manager of Aragon Plataforma Logística, a public company of the government of Aragon that manages the logistic platforms in the region of Aragon. Secondly, we have the presence of Mr. Thomas Nobel, managing director of the German Freight Village Association, DGG. In his extensive professional experience as a consultant, Mr. Nobel has directed a multitude of studies and projects for the European Commission, as well as for different ministries of the German government and regional authorities. Mr. Nobel is also the promoter of the European Freight Village ranking. We also have the presence of Mr. Alberto Milotti, Marketing and Development Manager of the Consorcio Interporto Quadrante Europa Verona. An expert in the field of transport economics, Mr. Milotti has been involved in European projects and collaborates with many Italian universities as the Bocconi, Verona, and the University of Pisa, among others. Finally, I would like to thank Mr. Eric Gunther for his presence. Mr. Gunther is the commercial director of Delta 3, the main logistic platform located in the north of France. Mr. Gunther has spent a large part of his professional career in the transport and logistics sector, specifically in the development of the French railway infrastructure. He also has worked in the freight department of the UIC, International Union of Railways. And without further delay, we will begin the session with Mrs. Velasco, who will speak about the success of Europe in the development of logistics platform. Mrs. Velasco.
Thank you, Jesus. Good morning, good afternoon to all. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organization for inviting us, Europlatforms, to share our experience in logistics center with you. Europlatforms is an European economic interest group oriented in the development of logistic platforms as nodal transport infrastructure. Our headquarters, active for 25 years, are located in Brussels. It's currently made up of 9 countries, which manage the successful networking of over 100 platforms and logistics centers across each and every one: Portugal, Italy, Germany, Denmark, Greece, Hungary, Poland, Finland, and Spain. Significantly, 3 of the 4 countries with the largest number of logistic platforms in Europe, namely Italy, Germany, and Spain, are members of Europlatforms. All European freight corridors considered a priority by the European Union pass through its facilities. What are the main objectives of our organization? What are the actions required to further develop and improve logistic platforms and centers? The principal objective is to represent and defend the interests of logistic platforms to European institutions. Regarding the European transport network, logistic platforms are set up as generators of goods through the European freight corridors, integrators of the flow of goods through Europe, and a vital link between the various European freight corridors. Our function is to raise the profile and significance of logistic platforms across European institutions, to be seen as a primary hub of activity related to transport and logistics. Our point of view is simple: no logistic, no supply chain, no economic development. Both existing centers and new ones in the offing have to be able to respond to the evolving needs of the logistics sector, which demands excellent connectivity measures within reliable and efficient infrastructure. Logistic platforms are a proactive element of the transport system, working to enable companies to increase their competitiveness within a global economy. On this slide, we can see a brief reference on the situation of the transport sector in Europe. The transport sector is a strategic sector of the European economy. Transport services account for around 5% of the Europeans' gross value added and directly employ more than 10 million people. 73% of the transport is by road, 17% by train, and 6% by sea. Many European companies are world leaders in infrastructure, logistics, vehicle and transport equipment manufacturing, and development of intelligent transport systems. In this context, what are the principal requirements to achieve an efficient logistic chain? Logistic platforms provide common features from the point of view of services, multimodality, control of goods, and also logistic platforms provide similar services along European corridors and are a perfect link for these corridors. Logistic platforms are key to the articulation of a sustainable transport system because they facilitate the development and cooperation of different modes of transport, rail, road, sea, and air, to reduce travel times, lower cost, and increase the volume of goods transported. This will increase the overall efficiency of transport by promoting large freight traffic corridors. Logistic platforms improve the European logistics sectors. Logistic platforms both add value and offer services. They are also spread through the European corridors. The European Commission always talks about European cohesion, and in my opinion, logistic platforms are a good example of this. They are focused on facilitating the mobility of cargo without considering borders. We are not thinking about the borders. We are always focusing on the cargo. So we like to think that logistic platforms contribute to better development in Europe. We provide similar services across Europe. So any freight forwarder, transport agency, logistic company, driver, etc., knows the services that can get in a logistic platform. Regarding the control of goods, the safety and security of the movement of cargo are very important, and traceability is also of concern. Logistic centers provide this security. So we need safe and secure transport. We also need safe data transmission, and to be more efficient, we should have the possibility of choosing the best transport model for each situation to move goods from one point to another. If we improve the value of the cargo in the transit, then so much the better. Who is able to provide these services? Logistic centers. From our point of view, we must understand the infrastructure not only as a tool, and we must focus on the services. So, in my opinion, because we have very good infrastructure and we provide quality services, we are ready to appeal to need transport proposals, and we must be aware and take advantage of this. All the logistic platform members of Euro platforms share the same concerns regarding challenges and uncertainty within the sector. Regarding the sustainable mobility, we should take the guidelines set out in the Green Deal into account. That brings us to the concept of the green logistics. It was formalized in December 2019. The European Union adopted the European Green Deal to address climate and environmental challenges. It's a new growth strategy for the European Union that aims to transform Europe into the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This is a big challenge, as you can see. Regarding the distribution of urban merchandise, the rise of e-commerce and the incorporation of shopping online by new significant segments of the population has advanced development by up to 5 years, and this is here to stay. Consumption in urban centers is rising. Logistic operators will have to find the right balance to be efficient in the so-called last mile to satisfy customers with competitive delivery cost. This growth of e-commerce will boost the demand for new logistic space in two ways. On the one hand, the need for large logistic spaces and storage. Platforms in locations far from major cities will increase. And the other, there will be an increased need for high rotation, cross-docking, last mile vessels located 5, 10, or 15 kilometers away from major cities. And this will totally transform the scenario of the feed types of logistics areas in big city environments and the typologies of logistic ships and all types of warehouses, low rotation, regional, high rotation, capillary, and urban distribution. That is why the logistic parts linked to traditional consumption, those linked to e-commerce, and now also those linked to this new urban distribution in big cities will have to undergo change. The introduction of new measures to improve the urban distribution of goods is complex, mainly because of the multiplicity of agents and sectors involved beyond e-commerce. As a result, public-private collaboration is revealed as key to developing potential solutions. Transport and logistics centers, public or private, play an important role in defining this new ecosystem, and we must collaborate to implement these new distribution and transport models. Public administration should establish new regulation to ensure mobility and sustainability, and promoters of logistics centers should provide the necessary infrastructure. For better results, the work must be done from an integrative perspective. Logistics centers play a dual role in this context. They are incorporated into urban, metropolitan territorial planning plans and programs because of the positive externalities generated by the following: by facilitating centralized distribution, reducing the number of vehicles on fleets and shortening the vehicle route, which is congestion on urban road networks, and thus mitigates the emission of pollutants and greenhouse gases, and also incorporates the real estate industry. Regarding the digital transformation logistic, digitalization involves data exchange between different players in the transport sector to adjust supply and demand in real time, leading to a more efficient use of resources. Digitalization can help create a truly multimodal transport system that combines all modes of transport into one well-functioning mobility service. A prerequisite of big data is further training that incorporates new skills such as the automation of storage, techniques to optimize stock, etc. Training is the key, and across both logistics and transport, in the coming years, positions linked to customer satisfaction and customization will be in demand. Digital transformation will create the need to further professionalize human resources working in logistic business processes, whereas today there are still a large number of professionals who will have to adapt to this digital environment. Therefore, today, more than ever, the developers of this infrastructure must develop logistic platforms that respond to these new demands to keep ahead of the game. The infrastructure determines mobility. No fundamental change in transport will be possible if it's not supported by an adequate network, more efficient and intelligent. Globally, investment in transport infrastructure have a positive impact on economic growth, create wealth and jobs, and increase trade, geographical accessibility, and mobility. The change must be planned in a way that maximizes the positive impact on economic growth and minimizes the negative impact on the environment. Logistic platforms are set up and ready to make the most of all evolution and change in the sector on a global level. As regards logistic infrastructure, demand is growing. As they evolve, so do the methods of working together. Quality, reliability, and excellent connectivity are necessary the objectives for all operators. It therefore follows that developers respond appropriately to these ever-changing needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for your presentation and for explaining us and our audience the goals and objectives of Euro platforms, and also for giving us a global sight of the European logistic platforms situation. Next, Mr. Nobel will talk about Germany's success in the development of logistics platform. Mr. Nobel, please.
Thank you. You could read my presentation. You could could see it? Could you see my presentation?
Yes, Thomas, excuse me.
Okay, sorry, that's on that. Okay, my name is Thomas Noble. I'm the managing director of the logistics centers in Germany, and today I'll talk about the situation that we have in Germany. And I go to my presentation. I will start with an introduction on the situation that we have here also in Germany, and this slide shows you the situation that we have here in Bremen. That is a freight village of Bremen. The freight village of Bremen is the pilot project of the idea of freight villages in Germany. It has a huge dimension of roundabout, if you see it here, roundabout 500 hectares with approximately 160 companies in the logistics field with nearly 9,000 employees. We start with the freight village in the middle of the 80s, and the freight village of Bremen, this is one of the most important logistic nodes that we have in Germany. For the understanding of freight villages in Germany, we so called it Güterverkehrszentren. We have an official definition or an official understanding what we mean with our freight villages and our Güterverkehrszentren. It means here with these three bullet points. We also have logistics companies, logistics service providers are located in one industrial area together, and that's very important, with production enterprises. That means we have service providers and clients together in one location. Another point is we have to establish a management function by an independent development company. And this development company is responsible for some cooperative activities to use some synergies. And last but not least, the most important point is we have to establish an intermodal terminal for the transshipment from a road to rail or to other alternative transport modes. That is the three main topics that we have in Germany for the understanding, and the heart of the freight village. Here's the example again from Bremen. You could see here the intermodal terminal here in Bremen. You could see the huge dimension within container depot, and here on all the handling equipment. And for the understanding, we are using three different types of handling of intermodal transport equipment or units. We have traditional sea containers in the handling, and then we are most popular are the handling of trailers, or you could see the blue one, they are swap bodies. We are handling in these terminals. Bremen is part of a network of logistics centers like Güterverkehrszentren in Germany. You could see it here on the map. We have an enclosed network of freight villages here, also in our capital in the Berlin region. The big ones are members of my organization, and the underlying locations are shareholder of our organization, and we have some members come from Austria, it's come from the cargo center in Graz, and some from in logistics center in the south of Austria. The key facts for your understanding, if we are talk about freight villages in Germany, we talk about of 35 locations. You could see the numbers of the employees, the numbers of companies there and operating. We have established an own brand for GVZ, for Güterverkehrszentren, and we are very proud in the topic of intermodality that we have more than 40% of all the transport in the intermodality was organized and transshipped by our container terminals that we have established in the freight villages. That means we are the backbone of the intermodal transport in Germany with our freight villages. The average, for example, of all these locations is 200 hectares. you remember that Bremen, we have 500 hectares, but we have a range from very small examples here in the west of Germany, goes up to more than 600 hectares in the Leipzig region. Is in the integration with the airport, together with the plant for the Porsche production and the logistics provider. You could see we have a big range from 23 to more than 600. The average is only 200 hectares. The main advantages that we have, the first we start the idea of freight bridges for the idea of the relocated or relocation of the distribution or logistics facility from sensitive districts or areas in the inner city area outside. Bring it together outside in an industrial estate. In this industrial estate, we have a low conflict potential, like 24 hours operating, 7 days a week. We have a very highly developed infrastructure. This is often trimodal, like road, rail, or inland navigator, or sea, or partly to the airport. But in the moment, we have a very popular positive effect in the field of the mean of urban or city logistics. It means we have the link between the long haulage transport and the last miles operation and transportation. And here, the example from my hometown Bremen, here you could see the freight village. It's here on the map. We bundling some of the shipments that we have by the logistics providers in this area and bring it with one of the trucks into the inner city of Bremen, and then we have the distribution by cargo bikes. It's what's very popular at the moment in Germany. We are using these types of cargo bikes. For example, we have some cargo bikes. We are using forklifters for pallets, for very heavy goods. We could transport it by these cargo bikes, a volume to nearly to 200 kilos. And here on the traditional box mover for boxes means like some packets and small boxes. And the operation was organized by a micro depot that we are established in this handling zone in the inner city of Bremen. And you could see here the handling shipment that we are organized. This means from truck to bike. The truck bring here also the shipment to our micro depot, or we are handling it directly to the cargo bikes. And you could see some impression from our distribution at the moment. You could see it here. We have some pallets for our forklift systems. We have here traditional packets, and then we are show you the distribution process at the in the city area. And the main advantage is that we could parking directly in front of the shops, and then we have a very good image by the inhabitants to say, okay, this is cool that logistics are using not the problematic trucks or lorries. They are using cargo bikes. It's very environmental friendly, and it's very acceptable by our inhabitants and by the public authorities and so on. One slide concerning my organization. We are the national platform for freight villages, and we are established at the beginning of the 90s. And we are a limited company. We are registered in Bremen, and we have another office in Dresden. This is in the east part of Germany, and I have another managing director colleague called Stefan Nestler. At the moment, we have 20 members of our location, and we are traditionally engaged in some lobbying activities, but we are more and more engaged in some research and consulting activities. And one of these main topic is we are creating the European Freight Village ranking. And here I give you some examples from our last survey. We start with all our surveys with an analysis of the present stage of the development that we have in the European market. And then we are looking to some future trends that we could identify in the freight village landscape. And the main focus is we have to to make clear a consideration of the current result in context with the data that we are received from the past surveys. In the end, you could see here the overview of our surveys that we are established. We start with only national-oriented surveys. Then we established in 2010 the first European, and so on. And the last one was in 2020, also on the European level. The ranking subjects come from different types and different clusters. We have here from some structure and development of the freight village areas, means how many the size, how many steps, and how many time do you need to establish this kind of logistic solutions, how many companies and employees engage in this process, the intermodality situation, the handling volume, capacity, utilization, and so on and so on. The clusters in evaluation criteria, for your understanding, we are using 16 clusters with 40 evaluation criteria. They come from different clusters. We have here the structural data, it means the size volume of this location. We have here the settlers, how many companies. I go in detail on the next slide. The development step, how long does it run to this kind of development? We have some characteristics, it means it's a brown field or a green field development, how many services are established in the freight villages, and so on and so on. And the example of the freight village settlements, that is the criteria. With these numbers here, we have the criteria from the 40 other criteria, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. And here are the description, current number of companies, and the final expansion, how many companies are there settled, and here by the employees, and an factor of the employees per hectare. And you could see it. All the criteria are not at the same importance. We have to make it a special importance and a weighting of this criteria. And you could see for our understanding, the current numbers of employees are very important, and that we have an importance of 6. The number of companies is also important, but it's also only 3. And here we have the maximum volume. It comes from 0. It means that it's not relevant. It's go to 1. It's under the average. 2, also in the average in Europe, and 3 is over the average. And then we have a multiplication with the importance to the maximum volumes. And you could see here is the maximum performance possible points. And of all these criteria together, you could receive for each freight village 400 performance points. All these results of our research are public in the most important logistics newspaper that we have in Germany, so-called Deutsche Verkehrszeitung, and that here is the headline, the best freight villages in Europe. And you could see here Germany and Italy are the benchmarks of the freight villages. Here from our last survey, you could see here Bremen is at the top of the ranking. And here is concrete the result that we have in Europe. You could see here the ranking of all these locations. But if you go in detail to some results, you could see here the performance points that these locations are received, and then here are the ranking position that we have in the ranking 5 years ago. You could see here the increasing, for example, here for the clip locations and the Poland market. It is very interesting because they are more and more oriented on the automotive industry. Also the same for the cargo center Graz in Austria and other locations that we could identify. If we are look to some examples. What are the best locations, or what are the best in class in our ranking? You could see it here, the example of the Interporto Verona. The capacity of the terminal is with a volume of 800,000 intermodal transport uni. This is the benchmark that we have in Germany. The same is for the handling volume. Also, we could say the second champion in European is the Interporto Quadrante Europa Verona, and it makes some benchmarks in the field of intermodal aspects. The assessment of the development that we have for our freight villages, we asked the developer in the last surveys in 2010, 15, and 20, what are their impression concerning the state of the development also for Europe, then the state of development in their own country and for their own freight village. And you could see here from a stage of low development goes up to a high level of development. We have an increasing in this period from 2010 to 2020 from 5.8 to 6.6, and here for the own freight village goes up to very high performance, goes to up 0.2. And if we talk about the most positive effects of freight villages, then we have four main items. You could see the green logistic aspect was very important. It had a ranking here from 6.6 on the level up to 10. The urban logistics, very popular in Europe, goes to 7.4. Modal shifting, the traditional, our DNA of our logistics centers, 8.3, and the important for the region, it means as logistic hotspot, as a hotspot for the employees, for the logistic competence of the region. That is the main important factor that we have for our freight villages 2020 in Europe. All these results we are reported in our own report. You could receive this report, so if you could send me an email to my contacts address. And my last slide bring together that you are remind some of my first slides concerning the idea of the ranking. We also identified current logistics trends that we have, and here you could see some examples for current trends in the logistics centers. The main aspect is the urban logistics. We have a lot of projects in the field of urban logistics together with freight villages. The very, point is the pandemic of the COVID-19 crisis. At the moment, we have in Germany a huge demand for more and more warehouses in the logistic market, and specific in the high-performed Güterverkehrszentren. For example, we have a trend for the relocation of production activities outside of Europe comes back to Europe, come back to Germany, and then we have an increasing of the demand of warehousing spaces and so on. From my understanding, the main challenge is climate protection or the climate adaptation. We have to establish our freight villages, our Güterverkehrszentren as climate neutral locations, and that was at the moment one of our main challenges that we have to organize also for the next generations, to have to bring our freight village to climate neutral location. Intermodal transport, our traditional DNA, the networking between the locations. We are engaged in the Euro platforms organizations. Another main trend, from my understanding, is digitalization. We are looking here in Germany for the technology of 5G. We are using the freight villages as test sites for this new technology, electromobility, hydrogen technology, e-fuels, and so on. And you could see the last ones on my point. And this is the input from my side to this panel, and I finish my presentation with some words. I say thank you again for the invitation and the possibility to take part on this panel, and I hope we can get in cooperation with another interesting pilot projects, and I wish you all the best for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for your presentation and for showing us not only how the German logistics platforms work. And something I think I've learned from your explanation is that they are better known as freight villages, but also for giving us details of the main characteristics a freight village must complete for being at the top of the ranking. Next, Mr. Milotti will explain us the reasons for Italy's success in the development of logistics platforms. Mr. Milotti, thank you. Mr. Milotti, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. And I would like also to thank you, the organizers of the forum, for the invitation, and Isabel, the president of your platform, to organize this session of European experiences on freight villages. My presentation will deal with the development of the freight villages in Italy, and I will also take a short look to some examples of European co-financing through the European CEF program, Connecting Europe Facilities program, for Italian freight villages. UIR, Unione Interporti Riuniti, is the Italian organization of the freight villages. At the moment, we represent all the existing Italian freight villages. We are at the moment 23 infrastructure located along the main TEN-T corridors, along the four TEN-T corridors that pass through our country. Our main objective is to develop intermodal transport through the modal shift, mainly between road and rail, but also between road and the other sustainable mode of transport, like inland waterways in some cases. We also promote our infrastructure at the EU level, participating, for example, in the association like Your Platform or other EU and Italian association. Our main objective at the moment is also to change the existing law that is dated in the 90s. The 1990 is the date of the creation of the first freight village in Italy. So we have 30 years. The first freight village in Italy has almost 30 years, and we are going to developing a new Italian law in order to set the news of the time in this period. Some numbers from the logistics services point of view. Altogether, our associates account for more than 30 million of square meters of logistics services. So we have more than 3 million square meters of railroad terminal, as Mr. Nobel told in his presentation. Railroad terminal as EU definition, as per EU definition, intermodal terminal and conventional terminals are the key aspects of a logistic platform, of a freight village. We have 5 million square meters of warehouses divided in low temperature, low temperature, and dry warehouses. And altogether, we can account for more than 1,000 of transport and logistic companies, and for more than 20,000 of employees. From the freight transport point of view, and focusing mainly on sustainability, so on the rail transport, we handled in 2020, we handled last year more than 2 million of TEUs, so 65 million tons of freight handled through our railroad terminals. More than 50,000 trains arrived and departed last year from our freight villages, and also 25 trucks per day drove through our areas in order to get in and get out from our main terminals. From the traffic point of view, the great majority of the traffic is combined traffic with almost 2/3 of the traffic in Italian freight villages. Then we have conventional traffic for 25%, more or less, and the rest is sea container traffic. So only a part at the moment, only 15% of the traffic at the moment of the Italian freight villages is the rail links to Italian and abroad port. In fact, we have our freight villages are linked both with Italian seaports, but also with the northern range seaports like Rotterdam, Antwerp, Bremen, and Hamburg, for example. Which are the keywords of the services we can provide in our freight villages? The three keywords are innovation, sustainability, and safety. In fact, we can offer services for the companies located within our freight villages, and for the people that daily works in these companies. So services for people like banks, like restaurants, like training, and services for companies like customs, like police and finance, that are more related to the third keyword, that is safety. Then, from the transport point of view, we can provide rail services, mainly European rail services, so international rail services for combined transport, but also national rail services. And then we can provide links with the rest of the world through Italian and foreign seaports, as I told before. As Mr. Nobel told the ranking they did in 2020, Italian freight villages are positioned in the first 10 with 4 freight villages that are Verona, Quadrante Europa, Parma, Bologna, and Padova. And at the EU level, we are the second country after Germany in the first 20 position of the ranking. So these two countries accounts for 13 out of 20 freight villages in the first 20 position of the European ranking. Also, from the European point of view, from the policies for transport policies, our freight villages are well positioned on 20 trans-European network transport corridors. In Italy, 4 20 corridors are present: Baltic Adriatic, Mediterranean, Scandinavian Mediterranean, SCAMED, and the Rhine-Alpine, linking our country with the northern area, and also the linking western part of Europe, like Portugal and Spain, with the eastern part, with the Mediterranean corridor, for example. Since 2013, European Union set up a program that the old TEN-T program now is the CEF, Connecting Europe Facility program, to help the core network, so the main network infrastructure development in Europe, and set up this program with the aim of co-financing planning activities of the development of this infrastructure, but also work activities dealing with the improvement of the services provided in our infrastructure. The next slides will present three examples of the recent co-financing by EU. The first one is a project at regional level, at the Veneto region level. We develop as Verona Quadrante Europa together with Veneto region, with the seaport of Venice, and the Italian infrastructure manager, Rete Ferroviaria Italiana, the Italian infrastructure manager. The project is located on 3 European corridors: Baltic Adriatic, Mediterranean, and Scandinavian Mediterranean. And we have some activities aimed at adapting freight villages and the seaport, the Venice seaport, to the new EU railway standards, like train long 750 meters and 200 tons trains. So this sub-activity will focus on the last mile from the rail and from the road point of view investment. These are a study project, and it is actually ongoing, and it will end in April 2022 with more than 2 million euros of co-financing from EU. A second project is also led by my company, by Consorzio Za Interporto Quadrante Europa, and it is a wider project than the other one I presented. It is a project set up at country level. We have 5 freight villages: Verona, Padova, Orte, Livorno, and Parma. Some of them are in the ranking of DGG. But we have also on board Italian Ministry of Transport. We have 1 airport, 2 motorways concessionaires, and 3 private operators. The project is dealing with the works, and we will construct some safe and secure truck park areas in Italy. One of the new topics that EU is now dealing with, and also Euro platform is present in the working group set up by DG Mobility and Transport in the recent year. The last one is a project presented by a freight village of Padova, Interporto Padova, and they have been co-financed in 2016 to build 5 new electric ground truck cranes and their ICT tools in order to improve the sustainability and efficiency of the new container terminal in the Interport of Padova, and to optimize the terminal accessibility and the organization from the technological point of view. So I would like to thank you again, the organization of the forum, and I'm available for any question you may have. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Alberto, for your presentation and for showing us the experience and success of the Italian freight villages, and also for giving us some interesting details of the European co-financing policies related to logistics. To end this session, Mr. Gunther will tell us about the French case in the development of logistics platforms. Eric.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. I hope you see something.
Yes, Eric, we see your presentation. Thank you.
Great. I will present you and introduce you. So first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor, and it's a great opportunity for us to present our platform abroad to an international audience. So I will present you Delta 3, which is a multimodal and logistic platform with a European dimension. So let's call it a freight village to be consistent with the first speakers. So Delta 3 creation was a double achievement. It's the implementation of a framework associating the local authorities and institutions, the local government, and it's also the transformation of a mining site, an industrial wasteland. We have three missions. We are an infrastructure and an asset manager. We are in charge of the property development, real estate, and we are the owner of a combined transport terminal, which is in charge of, and we are in charge of the marketing and the business development. Delta 3 combines three activities. First of all, the heart is a combined transport terminal with three modes, rail, road, and barge. And we also can store empty TEUs for maritime companies. We have increased our storage area up to more than 5,000 TEU. We have logistics warehouses. We have built, when all the program will be achieved, we will be up to 800,000 square meters. And we offer additional services such as service centers with secured parking areas for trucks, gas stations, restaurants, training centers focused on transport and logistics, and also railway rolling stock maintenance centers, etc., etc. But I will go through my presentation and show you this. So as I told you, it was a former, you can see it here, that what it was like before, when the site was a coal mine, and what it looks like today. And I have also a view of the global site here. I will show you with my pointer. Delta 3 is a 400 hectares platform. So the heart of the platform is the orange circled area with the combined transport terminal. And around this combined transport terminal, we have logistic areas in red, in blue here, in velvet here. And we have services, gas stations, training centers, and other services. We believe, so next slide is here. So we are located south of Lille in the north of France, 200 kilometers north of Paris. Around us, if you circle 300 kilometers, you can reach 100 million inhabitants. The northern region in France is quite, we have a lot of people living here with almost 6 million inhabitants around here. And the very local area where Delta 3 is based, it's around 330,000 inhabitants. We are located alongside the motorway between Lille and Paris, the A1, and we are not far from two other motorways between Calais and Reims, and between Lens and Valenciennes. We are alongside a wide gauge canal between Dunkirk and Valenciennes, and which is a good opportunity to reach the European waterways network and the major seaports of the range north. And we are also connected to rail because we have two. We are connected to two major railway lines in France: the Lens-Austricourt line and the historic line between Lille and Paris. And we are one of the biggest terminals on the rail freight corridor North Sea Med, Corridor 2, from Antwerp down to Marseille on one side and to Switzerland on the other side. First of all, the combined transport terminal. You can see some photos here and here. It's a very we have a lot of connections from and to this terminal. I will go through the rail connection we have. As you can see, we have more than 50 trains per week. It's around 10 trains per day. And we have many combined transport operators working with this terminal. We have Novatrans, Froidcombi, Transfesa, which is a DB Cargo subsidiary, and we have also two trains coming from Asia. The oldest one is coming from Wuhan since 2017, and Forwardis has began a new connection from Jinhua since the beginning of 2021. We also have inland waterways connections. We receive and we load and unload 8 to 10 vessels per week. So it's 1 to 2 barges per day. We are connected to Dunkirk once per day. And we also receive and send vessels from Antwerp and Rotterdam from 1 to 2 times per week. The combined transport terminal is made of 7 railway tracks of 750 meters. We have 4 railroad gantry cranes. We have our own shunting locos. We also use reach stackers, of course, and we have also a crane alongside the canal, which allows us to load and unload from water to road or water to rail. So it's quite well equipped. We have also rail marshaling yards composed of 14 tracks of 750 meters. So we can receive full trains with the 10T requirements. They don't need to cut the train to enter the terminal, which is really really easy to access. And we also have and the water quay alongside the canal is 250 meters under the crane, and we have 250 meters more for the waiting vessels. Sorry, it's I went. So the terminal is equipped with, as I said, 7 railway tracks of 750 meters. We have 4 railroad gantry cranes over 5 of those tracks. We can handle swap bodies, containers. We don't have to move trains to do that. The equipment can handle sea containers and swap bodies, and they have a maximum load they can lift. A lot of, you can see some figures here. We can rotate the swap bodies if needed. The cranes can handle 20 loads per hour, and the other railway tracks can be operated with the reach stackers if needed. We have a marshalling yard, so it is our property. It is plugged on the Paris-Lille and Lens-Austricourt lines. So we have 14 tracks, and those tracks have 2 main functions. So it allows arrival and departures of full trains with an access speed of 60 kilometers per hour. It allows us a dynamic management of the hub to optimize its use. We can enter block trains into the yard, and then they are operated by the shunting locos we have into the combined transport terminal. And the combined transport trains can leave directly from the city terminal to the network because the sidings are electrified. And some of the warehouses around the container, the combined transport terminal, are connected to the yard and can also load and unload conventional trains. And we have our own traffic control center, which manages all the traffic operations inside the terminal and the yard. And this control center improves, of course, the train's shunting operations and productivity, and with the full safety required on the field. We have also a quay, inland water quay. We can dock 2 to 3 container barges simultaneously, and we have a 3-modal crane which allows us to load and unload from waterways to rail, from waterways to road. So it's the same productivity figures as before. Here you have a photo showing the quay. We also have a container storage area with a capacity of 5,000 TEU. We have 32 reefer plugs for the storage of goods requiring temperature control. And we are also authorized to store dangerous goods in transit. Some land is still available, and we are studying the opportunity to extend our railroad terminal. It will the studies started, so let's say it's on a midterm basis from 3 to 5 years. We also offer additional services. We have a local maintenance facility which is available alongside the yard since 2015. The railway undertakings can use this facility with their own staff or with their maintenance supplier. A big player of the rolling stock asset management, which is called AKM, will also implement a full service local maintenance center with 8 workshops in the works, and the studies start this year, 2021. Today, this combined transport terminal is, we are the owner, and it is operated by a private company which is called L'Île d'Ourge Container Terminal. Let's have an insight on the traffic. Last year, the combined transport terminal handled more than 100 ITUs, which is around 350,000 TEUs handled, which is around 3,200 trains and more than 500 barges. Well, quick overview of the connections. We would like to have more connections on the Central and Eastern Europe. And we also have services around the combined transport terminal. We have a secured parking facility for trucks and a garage for trucks and semi-trailers. We have a training center on the platform, which trains around 2,500 trainees every year, which is a lot, from let's say operators up to top management. We have also gas station, classical ones, and we opened a new multi-energy stations with CNG, LNG, hydrogen, and electrical terminals. It was in May this year. Here you have an overview of the training center with the this warehouse is a school warehouse, and the classrooms are there. And around all these facilities, we have built logistics warehouses in 4 zones. The first one is dated of 2005, and the construction works were up to 2009. We have built 330,000 square meters in this logistic zone with big customers such as Decathlon or Leroy Merlin. It's a DIY company. Decathlon is a sport items retailer. We also have logistics providers such as Usen Logistics or Daxer, who are on the site. The logistic zone B, we have one rented warehouse for one for Kiabi, operated by a supplier called Logs. It's a textile industry, it's a retailer. And one warehouse was built in 2018 for a Belgian operator, which is called 2XL, and who is operating 39 square meters for Danone Waters. And they are operating rail operation in their warehouse. They have sidings coming into the warehouse to load and unload wagons, conventional wagons. So this was logistic zone B. We have another logistic zone C, which is dedicated to cross-dock operations. We have built the first warehouse. The second one is still to be built. We are looking for a newcomer. The first one has been built for the company Geodis, who is operating cross-dock operations. On one side of the warehouse, you have rail sidings. On the other side, you have trucks. And inside the warehouse, if it works, yeah, sorry, it goes too fast. On one side, you load and unload direct from the wagons, and then you split into the warehouse, and you load or unload in the trailers, and the operation is very easy in this facility. Every day we have one train coming from Avignon, south of France, up to Dourges, unload in Dourges, reload in Dourges, and go back to Avignon. So it allows Geodis to distribute goods from the south to the north in 24 hours. And the last logistic zone we are building is the zone D, which is the biggest one with the biggest buildings, biggest warehouses. Those 2 warehouses have been achieved this year in January. 150 square meters altogether. The first one is 64. The second one is around 90,000 square meters. Already full. The current logistics developments we have in Delta 3, it's almost 600,000 square meters already built and delivered. We still have 154,000 square meters to sell, to market. And at the end, we will have 780,000 square meters of logistic warehouses built. I think I've said everything. Thank you very much. If you want to see more, we have published a film on YouTube. If you are looking for us, Delta 3, and here are my details if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric, for your presentation and for showing us the French situation in the very good example of Delta 3, Delta 3, which is a representative case of multimodality as we have seen. Well, I think it's clear that the European logistics platforms are not only having a well-deserved success, which is based in the work made in the last 20, 30 years, as we have seen, and also in the cooperation between the different European countries under the European Union policies. But these European logistic platforms are also playing a main role on the economic development in Europe nowadays, a role that is increasing and getting more and more importance day by day. Well, seeing that the time permits it, I would like to ask you some questions that I think have remained unanswered or maybe are of interest for our audience. Some of you have mentioned them on your presentations, but what are the main characteristics that a logistic platform or freight village must have to offer an adequate service and to be considered a proper logistic platform? Mr. Milotti, for example, if you would like to answer us.
Yes, as some of the presentation, like the one of Thomas or Eric, showed us, there are some characteristics of the logistic platform that should be present in the infrastructure. The first one is undoubtedly a rail terminal that could let the modal shift between the road and rail, but also some other terminals or infrastructure or facilities that could shift to other mode of transport, like in Delta 3. We have the barges and the inland waterways network already linked to Dunkirk or Antwerp or Rotterdam ports. So it is very important to shift cargoes from the more pollutant to the less pollutant mode of transport. So this is the first characteristic I would like to underline. The second is the provision of a large amount of warehouses that could offer to the companies of the territory around the freight village the space, the right space to stock the freight, waiting for the transport or waiting for the last mile connection that could be done with electric vehicles, for example, or bikes, cargo bikes, or so on, for the urban distribution within urban areas. Some other characteristics, I think, could be customs, the presence of the customs, maybe for the freight villages dealing with international traffic, so the traffic linked with the seaports, with the eastern, with the Far East or the Americas. And then, for sure, ICT's solution, ICT's facilities. And in the last period, one small infrastructure that arose in the freight villages is the presence of a safe truck parking area, like in Delta 3, like here in Verona, like in many of GVZs in Germany, as also in Spain. I think this could be the main characteristics that can describe our infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Alberto. I think this question is mandatory due to the global pandemic, which lasts for more than a year and a half. So what effects has the current pandemic situation had on the operation of the platforms? Eric, for example, I don't know if in Delta 3 has something particular that you can explain to us.
On Delta 3, most of the shippers are retail companies. So they worked quite well, actually, during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, because they shifted their distribution process to e-business, to click and collect, etc. And they also are working on in sectors that are that were very popular during the lockdown, such as sport items, do-it-yourself, home decoration, that kind of stuff. So they worked very well, and the combined transport operators on rail, they reached a very high quality level during the lockdown period, because the passenger traffic was very low, and the works on the rail lines were postponed. So the reliability of the rail freight was very good during the lockdown. And then we had a second effect during the second half of 2020, which was the fear of running out of products to sell due to the pandemic. And also we are not far from Eurotunnel, and we are not far from Great Britain, and the fear of running out of products due to the Brexit also caused over storage. So a very good level of activity for the 3PLs, for the warehouses. So it was not a good year, I cannot say that, but the level of activity remained nearly the same as 2019. And 2021, as we do not have the lockdown between March and June, let's say, the figures are quite higher, and the business is quite good.
How interesting, Eric. Thank you very much. Maybe related with this explanation, what kind of challenges do logistic platforms or freight villages face in the short and medium term, Thomas?
Oh, Jesus, that's the master question that you asked. Okay, well, what are the main challenges that we have? I think in the short term, we have to, that you mentioned what Eric and Alberto told us. We have to enlarge our facilities. It means we have to create more commercial space in areas for our freight villages. We have, at the moment, we are very limited for the expansion of our freight villages. Another point is, for the challenges, that we have to create some, for my example, some pilot project for new challenges. For example, we find solutions in the field of electromobility, for digitalization, for urban logistics, and with this pilot project, they could be financed by the public authorities or by EU funding and so on, or by private operators. We have to create solutions specific for the logistics platform that we have in Europe, and that was what's one of the main challenges that we have. Another is, and that's one of my favorite topic, is the solution of the climate protection. That means we have to find pilot projects or find solutions to create our logistics platforms, our logistics centers for climate neutral freight villages. That is for our inhabitants, for the next generations. That is the main challenge that we have in this field. And last but not least, I think so very traditional, we have to optimize our infrastructure, we have to enlarge our terminals and our special equipment. And this all together are the main challenge. But on the top of this challenge, I think, is the climate protection at the moment.
The way we face these challenges is somehow affected by European Union policies. How these policies affect the development and operation of the logistic platforms, Isabel?
Thank you for the question, Jesus. In my view, European policies should help to synchronize freight village standards. Actions such as the creation of working groups around the need for safe and secure parking areas for trucks, and the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum, working groups in which Europe platforms participate, as Mr. Milotti said before, are both good evidence of this. European Union also play a fundamental role in the development and consolidation of the European transport network and around which the logistic platforms are located. So policies to support intermodality, railway use, environmental policies are essential for us. And of course, European policies also plays an important role in the distribution of funds that can contribute to the modernization, updating, and digitalization of our centers. So we depend on them for our development.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Well, we have no time for more questions, so I think we have to close this session, but not without first thanking our speakers, Eric, Alberto, Tomás, Isabel. Thank you very much for your presence, for your explanations. Thank you very much, because it's been a pleasure hearing you. And thank you very much also to all who are watching us for your attention. Thank you, and good afternoon, good morning.